And we're engaged. We are ready to go. Hello, hello, hello. I am Josh. Joining me today is brand new Illuminerdi member Jamie. Jamie, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Jamie. I am brand new, as you said. I'm an actor. I'm a stunt guy, and I'm an avid Star Trek fan. Excited to be here.
So what? Since you're new, this is your first time joining us here. I'm gonna ask you some Star Trek questions. Not trivia, just just stuff about you and Star Trek.
Sure.
So what show is the one that got you into watching Trek?
TNG.
Did you start from the beginning, or did you just see like a random episode?
The episode that I remember is the one that I remember like really. Oh my God, this is something I want to watch. Was the episode where Jean-Luc is professing his love for Counselor Troy's mom.
Oh, right.
I don't know if you've seen the
That
YouTube video where there's that song that's made out of all of his clips, but
maybe probably. I don't know if I remember
yeah,
that one though. But that was the
it's worth
one
it
where it was the Ferengi, right? And the only way that the Ferengi would leave them alone is if he made it seem like he was going to destroy them to keep them
to
from.
keep her
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
keep Aloxana,
Luoxana Troy.
Aloxana. Yeah. That was the first episode that I can remember, and Patrick Stewart. I'm an actor, so Patrick Stewart was always just like, "Oh my gosh, it's Patrick Stewart!" And then when he was doing that, when I saw him going over the top ham in that scene, I was like, "What? This is Star Trek?"
Oh, it
Because
was
as a kid,
yeah, that was so
oh,
good. Like
go ahead.
all of my favorite stuff with Patrick Stewart or with Jean-Luc Picard was a lot of the scenes where he's like either in the holodeck and having to act like his character or having to put on
Mhm.
some kind of a show for something.
Yeah. He really got to play hard with his Shakespearean training
Hmm.
in there, and like take it from naturalistic to like an 11.
Yeah. Really quick before we continue, Julia DeBell just popped in. She is one of our writers here at the Illuminary. Thanks for joining us, and hope you like what we're talking about.
And if
uh,
you don't, I guess I'm fired, right? No.
we'll see. So Star Trek: The Next Generation is the one that actually got you into Trek. But out of all
Mhm.
the series, which one do you think is your favorite?
Uh, I always go back and forth. I still haven't gotten to Discovery yet, so I can't include that in my full answer. But I think the best storyline that I've enjoyed the most had to be Deep Space Nine. It allowed its characters the most, for my money, the most rounded story arcs and the most discovery within them. Um, but it's I say that, and yet I don't know if they're my favorite crew. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because like it's funny because I Cisco is like my favorite captain.
Hmm.
But for a long time, Next Generation was my favorite show. That's
Right.
it's kind of switched now where I kind of like Picard a little bit better as captain, but Deep Space Nine is my favorite show. So it definitely it's different. Like some of my favorite characters are from diverse shows. Like it doesn't match up one to one what my favorite show is with my favorite characters.
Okay, so then I got a question
Yeah.
for you. And you don't have to flesh out every crew, but like if you had your dream crew, name your commander, your first officer, your tactical officer, and maybe a couple
It's
others.
funny you asked that question. So before I give you my answer, just a little bit of history
Uh-huh.
with that type of a thing. So Power Rangers is one of our biggest fan groups here at the Illuminati, and
Yeah.
the way we kind of blew up in that space was we had interviews with the actors from each of the different shows and each of the different seasons, and we asked them to tell us like what their dream team would be. Like if with their Ranger as the leader, who would they pick from other seasons that they would use on their team. So I kind of adapted that a little bit. I got the chance to speak with Mary Chieffo a couple of years ago before Discovery, season
and
season two, and so
okay.
I asked her like, okay, who is your away team? Like who would you be? So that's like a common thread here. So for me, man, like my away team, I would have to Riker would have to be part of it. Like just hit the way he kind of takes command of a situation, but also isn't afraid to joke and be
Do you have a
lighthearted.
particular generation of Riker, like Riker from the early seasons, from the later seasons, or Riker from when he makes his cameos in the other series?
I would say like first contact era Riker. So like
Okay.
that's when he's like he's still in that commander role, but he's taking on more, like a little bit more leadership type stuff. But also
Hmm.
he's still like that just jokey guy. Definitely bearded Riker though,
Right.
not non-bearded Riker.
Now, how was it when he appeared? What was it, season three, the beginning when he had the beard? All
I
of a
think
sudden,
so. Yeah, it was completely different. Like he looked like a totally different person.
yeah, yeah. He looked. He actually looked like he could take on the things that they were trying to give him, as opposed to just like good old American boy it
Yeah,
through.
yeah, yeah. Who else would I pick? Maybe Bashir.
Okay.
Because
He'd be.
he's both good in combat situations, but he's also a doctor. Uh,
Mhm.
um,
He's also a
yeah,
savant.
right. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say that I would pick him because of the eugenics, but I would pick him because of the eugenics.
You ju-
Um, who else? Man, maybe.
Side note, actually, if I
Yeah, yeah,
may,
yeah.
this is a little bit of a personal, but this is a shout out to actually, he played one of the eugenics. His real name is Michael Keenan. He was a professor of mine over at USC when I went there. He actually just passed away
Oh, that's sad.
recently. It is very sad, but while we're bringing up the
Yeah.
eugenics,
Well,
I just want a quick shout out to
also
him.
speaking about the eugenics, the I can't remember her name, but the woman, uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hillary
Uh,
Shepard. She was
yep.
a villain in one of the earlier seasons of Power Rangers.
Oh,
She
wow.
played a character. I think she was
She
Divatox.
was Rita, right? Oh, no.
Divatox.
Okay.
I think was the name of the villain that she played.
Okay. Now, which one did Diva Talks do? What
She was
what was their
what
power?
what I don't I didn't actually watch that season, so I'm not sure
Oh, okay.
what her thing was. But she was, I mean, like most Power Rangers villains, like over the top, like like just big, boisterous.
I think that is actually their power, being over the top, big, boisterous, yelly creatures.
Probably. Um,
Yeah.
to round out my crew, Data, uh,
Hmm.
and I want to pick someone from Voyager. Balana,
Okay.
and she
Okay.
has that because she's
So
also that engineer, but also like Bashir, she's good in combat.
yeah. So basically, you need a lot of people that are gonna help you out in a fight
Yeah, because
because
I mean,
you're gonna take a lot of fights.
I'm not a fight guy.
Oh.
Uh, uh,
Okay. Are you the captain though?
um, I'd be the guy who would be standing in the back yelling taunts at the other side,
Uh-huh. Okay.
and trying to demoralize them through insults.
So you'd be Dr. Soon.
Yeah,
Okay, gun to your head then. Your captain in your away team, Picard or Cisco?
I'm gonna have to go with Cisco.
Okay, even though Picard's your favorite
Yeah.
now. Is
So
Picard now your favorite
I
because
go
of
back and forth because they both have like really solid qualities about them. But Cisco is both a really good like politician when he needs to be.
Mhm.
Uh, but he's also, and I mean he's also really good at. He punched Q in the face. I mean, That's enough for me right there.
That's yeah, and now he's a
Yeah,
demigod,
yeah.
so
You know,
yeah.
I'm really I would love to see him come back. And I know recently he has kind of uh insinuated that he wouldn't be opposed to coming back at some point in the future either.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. I thought he was still very adamant against it.
He had been for a long time, for a number of random reasons. Not all of them were specifically about Star Trek, but sort of about acting in general. But
Hmm.
there's another review podcast out there called The Seventh Rule, that
Hmm.
the guy who played Jake Sisko, Sarah Lofton, is on.
Yeah.
It actually so it had been the host. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. I want to say it's Ryan. I think Ryan Husk maybe.
Okay.
Sarah Lofton and Aaron Eisenberg. Before he
Oh.
had passed away, he was a part of that too. And
Oh, wow.
Sirach, during one of their podcasts in the past few months, had mentioned that I guess he had spoken with Avery, and that he had seemed to be a little bit softer on the topic. Not necessarily
Oh,
being like,
wow.
you know, going out of his way to say, I want to come back and I'm going to make this an active thing I'm going to pursue.
Right.
But more of like, if they asked me, I'd actually think about it.
That would be great. Avery Brooks is a solid actor. Even some of his stuff that I've seen outside of it'd be wonderful to see him return.
I've liked him in everything I've seen him in.
Mhm.
So before we get into the actual episode itself, still a little bit of housekeeping that I want to talk about. We got some
Sure, sure.
we got some news this week. Over the past couple of weeks, we've actually gotten a bit of news about Star Trek stuff. So Billy Campbell,
Mhm.
who is great. Like you know him from The Rocketeer. He was in the 4400. He was in oh, what was that sci-fi show that was on a couple of years ago about the virus that gave people
Uh,
like weird superpowers?
the
Sort of.
Andromeda strain.
It was it.
That's not it. That's not
No,
it. That's an
no,
old
but
70s movie.
it was kind of like that though. It was sort of like. Did you see The Passage on NBC?
Yeah, I
So
think. Yeah, I saw.
it was very similar in like to that, where like there was some kind of experiments with some sort of a virus that got loose. People got infected, and it gave them certain abilities.
Okay,
It
I'll
lasted.
take your word for it.
It was good. It lasted 2 seasons. I was kind of sad to see it go, but I understand why people didn't watch it.
Mhm.
But in Star Trek, in season 3, he played a character called Okona.
Yep.
He was like this roguish type guy who came in because there was something wrong with his ship, and by the end of the episode, he was helping these two kids from uh, sort of
Warring. Yeah, they were
warring
like a Romeo
nations.
and Juliet. It was
Yeah,
like a
basically
Romeo
a
and
Romeo and
Juliet thing.
Juliet type thing. He was helping them kind of get together and was
Yeah,
caught in the middle of it.
yeah. He
Um,
was playing Cyrano de Bergerac to them.
more or less. So he's coming back to Star Trek Prodigy. He was on he was on a podcast a few weeks ago. If you go to our website at theilluminary.com, you can pull up the article on it there and get a actually it right inside the article you can listen to the podcast. I want to say it starts somewhere around the 20-minute mark when he actually starts talking about Star Trek. But
Mhm.
he kind of let slip that he was coming back, that he had seen a script for one of the episodes, and that he was going to be recording a scene soon. So he's coming back as an older version of this character, which I think is really cool because Prodigy is like, you know, it's a show aimed at kids, but
Mhm.
they're
It's
bringing
it's computer animated, right?
yeah. So it's from the same animation company that does Troll Hunters.
Yep.
Um, and here I could actually show a look at what some of these characters look like. We got a reveal of the bridge crew earlier this week. Let's see here. Click the right button. So this is what the bridge crew looks like. It'll pop up for you in a couple of seconds. Everyone else can see it now. But it's a really diverse crew. Like there's a robot type character. There's a short guy that kind of looks like the pig guy from Captain Planet.
There's the giant thing looking dude.
Yeah, they're just giant rock thing. This little slime thing that looks like Norm Macdonald's character from the Orville.
Yeah. Doug, actually, it does, doesn't it? It's
So
interesting how
except
they're all.
Smiley, yeah. Yeah, it's really, this is a really diverse crew, and it would have been hard to do this with like, you know, a live action TV show because of like
Yep.
all of the CGI that would have been required for it. I mean, Discovery like really ups the the production quality with like the CGI. Like it really, for the
It's
most
almost
part,
the movie.
yeah, it looks like movie quality stuff. Obviously, this is the first series that we've had in 15 years. Uh,
Hmm.
so you know, it makes sense that the CGI would look better now than it did back then. But doing something like this would be a completely different level. Uh,
Yeah.
but
And
so
they haven't announced much casting, right?
no, so we don't know who any of the actors are who are going to be voicing any of the characters except for Billy Campbell now,
Yep.
and Kate Mulgrew coming back to reprise Janeway. Uh,
Janeway. And she's actually going to be like a constant character, whereas Billy's one off as far as we know.
Right. So from his conversation, what it sounded like was that they are planning to bring back a number of what he called heritage characters, which sounds
Hmm.
like one-off characters that you might have seen in like one episode, and then just
Right.
kind of went off on their way. So like maybe not so much like a Harry Mudd, because Harry Mudd did show up a few times throughout the course of the show,
Right.
but more like him. So that's it's interesting to me because this is a show that's directed at kids that don't necessarily have a background in, oh, I remember this character.
Hmm.
So that actually kind of makes me excited because it's coming to seem like the show is going to be more along the lines of well, not tonally, because it's still like an action comedy type thing, but more like an Animaniacs or a Tiny Toons, or like the old like Steven Spielberg cartoons that
Yeah, so it hits
were,
everybody
yeah,
in
they were
some
directed
level.
at kids, but a lot of the jokes were funny to adults on a completely different level, and that's what this kind of feels like to me.
I also like it because it obviously will take place in a similar timeline after Voyager, going on into uh, what happens between then and between them and Discovery.
Right, well,
Um,
so that's another thing that we don't know. We don't know like what year the show actually takes place. Like, does this take place between Voyager and Picard, like Lower Decks does,
mm,
or does it
right.
take place at the same time as Picard, or is it at the same time as Lower Decks? I don't know. That hasn't really been established yet. So I'm really interested to see what that's going to be.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I love the to harken back to the whole animated thing you were hitting on the diversity of the characters, and I hope that the casting is equally as diverse because it lends itself to just being so open and amazing in the talent that they can bring in.
Yeah, like you know, like I mean, you literally any of these characters could be, you know, it could be like, you know, I don't know, you get like Josh Hutcherson voicing one, and James Earl Jones voicing another one, and it
I
does
was going
it.
to say Avery
Or
Brooks.
Avery Brooks, Steve Buscemi, you know,
Oh,
who Fran Drescher maybe,
Fran Drescher, Andy Dick.
Andy
Andy Dick.
Dick,
Yep.
yeah,
When I think of
Oprah,
diversity, I think of Andy Dick. No.
Oprah and Uma, yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic show. I'm looking forward to it. And who doesn't like the animation style of Troll Hunters?
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be good. The last bit of news that we got about it is that it's now going to premiere on Paramount Plus, not on Nickelodeon. Originally, it was supposed to start on Nickelodeon, and then possibly be added to Paramount Plus like after it airs, or at the, you know, because Paramount Plus is it's the Viacom streaming service now.
Like
So
all of it. Yeah.
yeah, so everything with the exception of maybe Showtime. I don't know if Showtime stuff is going to be going up on there or not, but
Yeah.
everything from like CBS and Nickelodeon, like all of their TV networks, the Paramount network, all of that stuff is going to be showing up on Paramount Plus. But this will air first on Paramount Plus. I'm assuming weekly, just like all the other Star Trek stuff has. And then at some point after it premieres on Paramount Plus, it will go to Nickelodeon to air on regular cable television.
Mhm.
I don't know whether that's a good choice or not. I don't know if that's to pull the adults in and then be like, okay, well now that we have an adult audience, let's reach out to the kids to try and build it that way. Like I'm not sure what their reasoning is, but I hope it works.
I'll just blame the pandemic.
I mean that's very possible. But can I also say how horrible of a name Paramount Plus is?
Why do you think it's bad?
Okay.
And they're going to pull all of our funding now.
Disney Plus, AMC
Mm-hmm.
Plus, BBC America Plus. Now we've got Paramount Plus. It's just generic. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, do you think Netflix is going to come out with Netflix Plus eventually?
Maybe Apple TV has Apple TV Plus.
Is it Apple TV
Apple
Plus?
TV Plus is their subscription service.
Oh man, okay. I do. There's one show on Apple TV that's really good though. The Lasso show, Ted Lasso.
Oh, I've heard that's really good. I've heard For All Mankind is really good, but I haven't watched that yet. I kind of cheated a little bit and got a year subscription to Apple TV Plus because I had to buy a Mac earlier in the summer that I ended up returning. Right. And they didn't cancel my account when I returned it. But so far the only thing I've watched on there was a few episodes of the Amazing Stories reboot, and it was fun.
Oh,
like okay. The episodes I saw were fun. The one with Robert Forster, which I watched because he had died earlier this year, so I was like, oh, that's a shame. But this is the last thing they did, so I want to make sure that I watch this. It's fun. I've heard from a lot of people that it's not as good as the original was, but I wonder if that's more nostalgia kicking in or if it's actually not as good. I don't know. In the chat really quick, we have Donnie Pearson, who is one of our regulars here. He's also a moderator for us. Thanks for joining us and welcome. We're going to start talking about the episode momentarily. Jamie, there's someone in here that
Ted Lasso is the best. Absolutely, Devro. You are completely correct. And hello, Donnie. Nice to meet you.
So let's jump into this episode. It's season 1. We're still in season 1. Yes. Episode 15, Shuttlepod 1. This is an interesting episode. And you, but before we went live, you were actually giving me a little bit of trivia about why this episode is formatted the way that it is.
Yeah, so I got this off the fandom page, so it's real. But apparently, for season 1, and I mean, as with every production, you've got to find ways to cut costs. So they ended up making this episode very simply, which is why it's mainly just the two of them inside of the shuttlecraft, which was, as far as I know, it was a stage. It wasn't like some giant gimbal production or anything like that. But they made it so simple, simply to allow for budget restraint, so they could use it in other parts of the season.
So typically in other shows, this kind of an episode would be a flashback or a clip show where you would see like 2 or 3 actors there. They'd be talking about stuff and it would recap things that had happened earlier in the season or earlier in the show.
Kind of like what the end of season 2 on TNG, where they go into Riker's memories.
Oh yeah.
It was like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I kind of like this a little bit better because it's a self-contained story. The way it was shot makes it fit anywhere in the season. Obviously it couldn't be the first episode because we'd have absolutely no idea what was happening.
Right.
But this episode could have been in any season. Because it was really just a self-contained story that could have taken place anytime after they had been out for a few months.
For a little bit of time. What was great about it, though, I think where they dropped it into this season was they had started to go with the story arc for Malcolm Reed, that he was kind of a loner.
Right.
He didn't really get close to people. So this episode kind of starts to pull him out of his shell a little bit.
Yeah, and that was really apparent in the episode where they were trying to figure out what to get him what to do for his birthday.
Yes, exactly.
Archer had given Hoshi the challenge or the mission to go around the ship and try and figure out like what he was into and what he liked. So she ended up calling his parents, and even they were like, I don't know.
Idea. I
Uh,
thought it was going to go into this other direction where it turned out that he wasn't really him, and then it was like, oh, Malcolm Reed is not the real Malcolm Reed.
that would have been interesting.
But it ended up being pineapple.
Yeah,
Yeah, which works on pizza.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting though. If you remember in the episode, when they pull out the ration packs,
Yeah.
They've established by this point that Malcolm Reed doesn't really like fish,
Right,
but
and
he
that
chooses the sea bass.
And Trip is really into catfish.
Mm-hmm.
Like catfish is his favorite food.
His deal, yeah.
So it was interesting to me. Like it was actually really interesting to me that Trip picked the meatloaf, which is like the most. I like meatloaf, but like when you think about meatloaf, it's like the most boring, just generic meal because it's meatloaf and mashed potatoes, or like an open faced meatloaf sandwich or something. It's just ground beef with some seasonings in it, just dropped into a loaf pan and cooked. Like it is literally the most boring thing ever. So it surprised me that he picked that and not the sea bass.
I actually will argue that I'm okay with that. I resonate with Tucker more than any other character in Star Trek because I am also a Florida boy.
Mm-hmm.
So
See, I'm Florida by proxy. Like
Okay.
I grew up outside of Philly, in the middle of like have you ever seen like Ski Patrol? Like that old movie from like the 90s with like George Lopez and Paul Feig.
I think so. I think I remember that.
That's the kind of place where I lived. Like not in like the like right in the ski resort, but like if you drove down to the mountain to the towns that surround the ski resort, that's where I lived. My dad worked at the ski resort. He was like an accountant there. So like they had like a free ski day for employees, which is how I found out that I was not a skier and would never be a skier.
Yeah.
But so that my connection to that kind of thing is slightly different than yours. I moved to Florida when I was 17.
Okay.
So when I got there, I was like, what in the southern hell is this?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that that meatloaf is a like culinary delight that Floridians are all about or anything like that. But to me, it is something that strikes home as comfort food.
Yeah,
And
that's what it is.
And also Tucker, I don't think knows that that Reed wouldn't like fish. So in my mind, he's being the Southern gentleman, being like, "You take the nicer dish, I'll stick with the simple comfort food."
Right. But at the same time, these are rations. Like, have you ever had a TV dinner that was fish?
Right.
I've had I've had meatloaf TV dinners. They're edible.
Yes.
I can't say that they're good, but they're edible. I've had TV dinners with fish. Those are not good.
No. The thing is, though, they constantly talk about Chef in this show. And if Chef prepared those, then, maybe they're not quite TV dinner. Maybe it's actually good. Or maybe it's a joke.
Yeah, maybe if
Maybe
these
it's
aren't
really
like if they're not MREs, if they're rations that were prepared fresh at some point.
Right.
Like our other roommate just started getting like freshly.
Yes. Which smelled really good when he was heating it up.
So if it's that kind of a thing, okay, maybe. But if it's like an MRE, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm having to imagine that this is quite far enough in the future that MREs actually taste decent. I actually have eaten an MRE.
You would hope.
Before,
this is before replicators. Well, sort of before replicators.
They can replicate the liquids.
Yeah, they can replicate liquids and like proteins, I think, but not like full on meals as far as
in fact their kitchen or their commissary area, it's like a slide and pick it up like you get out of one of those vending machines.
Yeah, what were those things called? Something matte.
I can't remember.
I can't remember because like
Automat?
Maybe because those were a big thing back in the day too. Like weren't they? Like where like you would have like a cafeteria type thing where you could go and buy food that was in like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, you can. I think they still have some of those in other countries.
I don't know. Like I don't think we have them here.
I haven't seen them here in a long time. Although there's similar things in like old hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Something else that I found interesting about the episode, and speaking back to Malcolm Reed, he actually, Dominic Keating, he actually considers this his favorite episode of Star Trek.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's just because he enjoyed getting to do the intimate acting type thing, like kind of like black box theater where you're in a very close quarters
Right, right.
area.
Well, I think like it's been a long, like, I know you're rewatching the show, like you're like almost to the end of it now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm at halfway through season 4.
Yeah, so I'm going at a little bit slower pace. I'm keeping up with it at the same rate that we are. Just so I, in the conversation, I don't, like, I've seen it before, but it was 15 years ago. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and start like mixing the episodes up.
I'm trying to do my best to not talk about anything after.
But Joe, who started out on the show with me, he did the same thing. Like he binged through and then would go back and rewatch the episode that we were talking about ahead of doing this. But like I know what's coming. But if I remember correctly, this is like one of really the only episodes that is very heavily focused on his character.
Um, yeah, pretty much. There's a couple episodes later that have him in the episode pretty heavily,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as any sort of character development is concerned, this is pretty much it. From here on out, you get a lot more development with Trip, a lot of development with Archer,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of development with T'Pol. Um, the other actor that I don't see a lot of development with, which disappoints me a little bit, is Hoshi Sato.
Yeah. Travis even
And
is
Travis,
kind of left
yeah,
behind a little bit too.
yeah, Travis gets left behind a little bit too. That Travis gets one good episode, and it's dear to my heart. He gets one good episode where he goes back home to his freighter ship because his father passed, and that always gets me.
I don't know if I remember that one. 'Cause
It's a
that's
really
season 2, I think.
yeah, that sounds right. It's a really good episode. He gets to go back to his freighter family. What are they called? Boomers. They're called
Yeah,
boomers.
yeah.
Sorry, boomer. But he goes back to his family, and I'm getting ahead of it, so we'll get there. But there's a really great dynamic between him and his brother in that episode, and him and his mother. And it gives Travis some really great moments as a character and as an actor. Anthony, I can't remember his last name. Anthony.
Yeah. So, and he's one of those guys who, like, we might, we were talking about this earlier. We heard his voice, but we didn't actually see him.
Yeah, he's on the comm.
Yeah.
What is it? There's 7 main actors, I believe, in the cast, and he's only over the comm. He's not even on screen in this episode.
Yeah, in this episode, really, we see Trip and Trip and Tucker are the same person.
Yeah,
Trip and Malcolm. We see Archer. Hoshi does show up briefly.
she's there for.
T'Pol and the Doctor, and I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. That is all.
Yeah, so
and
it's
then,
only the
and
5
then
of them.
Travis is over the
Yeah.
comm. Yeah, and then a couple background actors. Something else trivia wise.
Anthony
Anthony
Montgomery.
Montgomery. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you very much. Anthony Montgomery. I couldn't remember that last name. Apologies, Anthony Montgomery, if you're watching. But another interesting thing, this is the only episode in which no special guest stars appear and no stunt performers.
Interesting.
And Star Trek Enterprise is where they really up the stunt game too.
Yeah.
Because as you were mentioning when we were talking, they were really trying to catch up with shows like Battlestar Galactica, and I think Babylon 5 may have been shortly before, but
Yeah,
other
more
shows
more of the action-heavy sci-fi stuff that was starting to pop up.
and they really didn't hit the action too much in the first season, but it was starting to be there.
Yeah. So one of the things I really liked about this episode, because I mean I'm not a big filler episode guy. You know, I see these clip show episodes. I'm like, I don't need to watch this because nothing actually of substance happens in this, and it
Right.
doesn't matter. It's kind of like those episodes where at the end everything is set back to the status quo. Like in Voyager, there was what was it, Year from Hell, where the ship was like all of like the weird clones or something, and then
Yeah,
by the end it was like completely dissipated. And
yeah,
at the end of the episode,
they
yeah,
had set up way long ago with Kes being like, "Oh, in the future, blah blah blah," and then
yeah, and then it was like, okay, well, none of that mattered. Like that did not like nothing is coming of that. Why did that happen?
yeah,
Like at least with some of the other episodes where we got like some of that stuff, like the Worf episode in TNG, where he was like on his way back from a Batleth tournament,
oh
and a
yeah,
bunch
yeah,
of
yeah,
weird
yeah.
stuff, and a bunch of weird timey wimey stuff happened.
It's where he is it the one where he goes to Silvercore?
No,
No. I'm
no.
confusing that's
No, he was at a Batleth tournament. He's coming, and he had taken a shuttlecraft. He's coming back to the Enterprise. He passes through some sort of time rift or something, and it causes him to start jumping through different dimensions. So everything is different from one to the next.
He maintains the growth.
Yeah, because he remembers everything that happened. So
Yeah,
like
just like what happens in this episode.
yeah, and but in that Voyager episode, nothing.
Yep.
So
And that's always I mean that's one of the I don't know how I feel about that when it comes to Star Trek because they do some great writing. What's nice about it is over the course of what was it 4 series, it was 4 or 5 showrunners, so they were able to stay very tight with what they were trying to accomplish.
yeah,
So it gets really annoying when they kind of retcon themselves within an episode.
right, and like like. I shouldn't say all filler episodes. It's mainly just those like the clip show episodes, like we were talking about before,
Yeah.
or that Voyager episode. It's the ones where at the end of the episode nothing matters because like some of my favorite episodes of certain shows are like filler episodes that don't necessarily tie into the overall story, but
Yeah.
the like what happened still happened.
And it allows for like the arc to grow.
Right. So like you might learn a little bit more about a character or something might happen, and it doesn't necessarily affect the overall course of the show, but you still get a little bit more insight into those characters, and that's with this one. That's kind of what happened. Is we got really up close and personal with both Malcolm and Trip. And learned a lot about who Malcolm is as a character and just like who he is. And
thinking about thinking about the show, it actually to your point, this episode more so than some of the other filler type episodes, it sets the ground for Tucker and T'Pol.
Even though it was Malcolm was the one who was like kind of digging on her.
But you can see, at least for me, when I watch Trip's reaction, it's already like there. It's already kind of like, well, yeah, of course I think she's beautiful, but I'm not going to talk about her that way. So it was an interesting choice that they moved away from Malcolm pursuing her, but it also makes sense because Malcolm is shy. I mean, as evidenced by, when I first watched the episode, it made me cringe until I got to the end of it. Where Malcolm is writing all these different love letters to the women that he has dated in the past.
Oh yeah,
and to me it's so sad and also weird because I have to imagine that these women don't really remember him or maybe not remember him fondly or It was like maybe Star Trek equivalent of Tinder dates.
It's funny because like that kind of stuff like that me personally. Those are things that I would think about in my head and maybe start a conversation with Trip about that kind of stuff. Be like, do you have any regrets? Or, just to me, it would come out in conversation form. I wouldn't sit down and start doing like live journals about all of these things that I regretted in life. Because I wouldn't want people to find that.
but it's a very telling thing about this character,
Yeah.
that is what he gravitates to. He doesn't call his family and leave records for them. He leaves like official records for Starfleet, and then these love letters to the women that he's.
Well, he did have the one log entry, or the one, for with his parents, because that was the one where Trip was interrupting him, and it was like, has your son always been this way?
That's right. You're right. You're right. I do remember that. That was so
there was one there, but to your point, the fact that he was doing this to all the that just like this string of women. It was like,
and Trip even points it out. He's just like, can't you just make one letter and change up who you're sending it to? And he goes, no, I wouldn't say this person had beautiful eyes or something. And it's like, I mean, I cringe at that, because it's like, what the, and then at the end of it, he actually comes to the realization, like, this is sad, that this is all that I have to reminisce about on my life. Like, I have not made these connections.
and it's interesting because we haven't seen that side of him on the ship yet. Like, he's not like a serial dater with like within the crew, which maybe maybe that's a rule that he doesn't want to break. Like, he doesn't want to fraternize within the group, like, at work or whatever, or within the ranks. Maybe that's a Starfleet, well, not Starfleet, but a regulation at this point that they're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're supposed to date subordinates within the crew. But that does actually get addressed in a later episode, but I'll leave it for that one.
So yeah, it's interesting because, like, learning that about him, that's not something that I would have thought. Like, that's not the kind of guy that I would have thought he is.
Yeah.
Is
it just because he has a good British accent?
No, it's just that, like we were saying before, we don't know any like really anything about his personal life until now. It's he never came across as, this like, from these you would assume that he's like a Captain Kirk type guy. But he doesn't
come across that way.
He doesn't exude that type of personality.
That kind of, well, I mean, there's also something to be said for the silent shy type. He probably is the guy that is quiet, and so people gravitate towards him because they think there's a lot going on. And then maybe there is a lot going on, but he also doesn't know how to then connect. Right. And so it gets to a point where the other person wants to connect more and he pushes away, which is like a whole nother meta thing that we're probably putting on this poor guy. But I will say, to go on a tangent, I remember the first time I watched this episode, I missed the beginning part, like maybe the beginning 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I thought that it was a time travel episode.
Oh, you thought that it was the Enterprise that had crashed?
Yes, and that somehow they had to get out of their temporal flux. I completely didn't know. So for the first 30 minutes that I watch it, first 25, I'm banging my head against the wall. This was years ago. I'm banging my head against the wall. Like, what is going on? Why are they trying to go somewhere where there's no signal? And why did Enterprise leave them if they're still there and all this? I completely missed the beginning. But I have a question to you.
Okay.
Do you still find that even watching the episode, why did Enterprise leave? I know they had the thing that they had to go rendezvous for, but if there's debris on the asteroid that they know that Trip and Malcolm are coming back to, why did they leave? Why didn't they?
Yeah, that's like one of those weird plot holes, because like the whole thing I understand why they left. So they left because they ran into this other ship, the one that did crash. So they had to save
Tensians, I think.
Yeah, so they had to save them, and they couldn't survive in the regular atmosphere that was on the Enterprise ship. They needed the boron gas or whatever every so often. So they had to return them to their people so that they could survive and actually not be stuck there suffering.
Sure.
So that makes sense, but you would
why not leave a beacon or a buoy or something?
Yeah, that's
that
exactly
says,
what I was going to say.
Hey guys, we went over here. Come find us. Yeah. As opposed to leaving them there. Yeah, and then they're stuck. And on a shuttle pod that has 10 days worth of air,
well, so at this point, because there were CO2 scrubbers, but there wasn't really a recycling system. So the oxygen tanks that they had were only going to last so long.
And they'd already been out for a couple
Yeah,
days.
until the CO2 scrubbers ran out of the ability to continue scrubbing the CO2 and recycling the air. So that it's a not a red herring. What's the term for?
It's yeah.
I can't remember there's a film term for that.
MacGuffin.
A MacGuffin. So no a MacGuffin, because a
No,
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin is a red herring.
Or a MacGuffin basically is a red herring. Yeah, it's just a plot device. It's just something that's there it's the ticking clock. You know
I'm counting down from 10, and Donnie's going to have the answer for us in the chat.
But no, yeah, it's weird. But years from now, we see, you know, that because if they actually had like a replicator on the ship, they would have been fine.
It'd have been fine. And the thing is that they do address anyway with the subspace pockets or whatever that hit the ship, that hit the shuttle pod, and so they end up losing
the micro singularities. Yeah,
the micro singularities.
I thought that was an interesting and fun thing too, where Archer was like, "This is just something that this is like Bigfoot for you guys," or whatever it was. He was like, "You guys
blame it on the common cold."
Yeah, He was like, "You guys keep looking for these things that we have absolutely no proof of existing." And then by the end of the episode, it was like, okay, so they exist.
That actually, it's a small thing, but it actually, in my mind, because having watched the rest of the series, binging it right now to try to just get my memory back on it, that small belief thing that Archer jokes about ends up becoming a big thing later on. Not that particular belief about the microsingularities, but just belief in general, kind of in the same way that it does with Sisko in Deep Space Nine.
Right. Well, I mean, religion and faith in general is a very common theme within the world of Star Trek, and how cultural differences and different beliefs shouldn't preclude people from having, you know, a common ground.
Absolutely. That's one of the great things about Star Trek. I mean, its history from creation to now, it's rife with all sorts of messages about inclusion and acceptance and understanding. And it's no different in this episode, even though it's only 6 of the main actors on screen.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I have this conversation with people a lot. Star Trek is one of the most consistent shows where you can pretty much go into any season, find any of these social justice episodes that address you know, like some issues with society, and it's still relevant, like whether it's from the original season or Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. I think has the most. Voyager, maybe not so much Voyager, but still certain episodes from Voyager, and definitely episodes from Enterprise, like you'd watch them and be like, I can relate to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I'm happy that we can still relate to it or not. I would love to be in some respects.
In some respects, it's good. In other respects, it's like, how are we still dealing with this?
Yeah.
Like the show was 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago. How are these still issues that we haven't overcome yet?
I mean, yeah, it's sad. I mean, we know how some of them are still issues, but
You know. But you see that, like, that's again another good thing about Star Trek. And you know, like a lot of people started shitting on Discovery because of it going into like this SJW territory, which has always been a thing within Star Trek.
That's the whole point.
And Star Trek has also never been this utopian society that a lot of these other fans seem to think that it was. Like in Next Generation, you had people high up within Starfleet that were doing bad things.
Yeah,
Section 31 is an extremely gray area of Starfleet. What was the last Star Trek movie? Nemesis?
I think so.
Nemesis, where they were going to destroy the planet, and that one admiral was like, "This is just a thing that we're going to do. It's not really a big deal." Or no, Insurrection. Sorry, it was Insurrection. Not Nemesis.
Insurrection? Oh, Nemesis is TNG, isn't it? Isn't that one?
Well, they're all TNG movies, but yeah, Nemesis is the last TNG movie.
I thought you were talking about the Kelvin timeline.
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, even within the Kelvin timeline, you had RoboCop. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Paul.
Peter Sellers.
Peter Welker.
Peter Welker. No, Peter Welker is someone else.
Uh,
Weller.
uh,
Weller.
Peter
Peter
Weller.
Weller.
Weller. Yeah. Well, Welker's the voice of
Yeah.
many. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
Peter Weller, the guy who in Into Darkness, like
mhm.
he was more or less Section 31 back before Section 31 was kind of existing, or without Section 31 in this version of the universe.
Yeah.
Like
He
bringing
played
out.
that character very
Yeah, he
well
did.
too.
Like he was a bad guy, and he
Hmm.
was Starfleet. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I don't know. I know we're getting close to time, but I have to ask because I don't know this answer out of you,
Okay.
and I'm sure you've answered it a million times. But Star Trek, Star Wars, gun to your head.
So up until now, I would have said Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
Star Trek. I would still say Star Trek only because Star Wars was basically just known for the movies. There were the animated shows, there was the Clone War series, but
What about that holiday special?
I mean, that was something. But it didn't have the type of breadth of storytelling that Star Trek did. Because with
Yeah.
Star Trek, we had those big blockbuster style movies, just like Star Wars has, but we also had the smaller, more intimate, intimate stories in the TV show. But
Yeah.
now, with Star Wars, with things like The Mandalorian and all these other shows that are popping up, it might be more of a toss up.
Hmm.
I don't know. What about you?
I as a kid it was Star Wars because it had all the action
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I gravitated towards. But then when I got a little bit older, teenage 20s, definitely moved into Star Trek territory. Mainly for the social issues.
Yeah.
Because in Star Wars I never really saw it tackling any of that. The only time that Star Wars has teetered over back into, ooh, well, maybe I like it a little more now, is Rogue One and Mandalorian. Those
Yeah.
are the only.
Yeah, well, yeah, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Is like they're starting to bring these more, um, these bigger stories
Yeah,
to a broader audience and
yeah,
and to a different format.
yeah.
Um,
Which they're able to do with the money that Disney
yeah.
provides them. I mean, Star Trek is unfortunately hampered by the fact that they're with a smaller studio. But I'm
Although I
okay
mean
with
that
that.
seems like it's changing. I mean, look at all the stuff that they're doing with Star Trek now. We have
That's true. They got like 5 new series
So
coming out,
we have
right?
Discovery that's already on the air.
Hmm.
Lower Decks, which is going into season 2. Picard, which is starting production on season 2. Discovery is shooting season 4 right
Hmm.
now. I don't know if they've actually wrapped yet or not. Strange New Worlds, which has gone into
Yep.
production. There's this Prodigy, the other animated show, and the Section 31 show that is in development. We don't really know what the deal with that is yet.
Right. So
Um,
I think that's 6 shows between what's already happening and what's in
And
development.
there's still talk that Star Trek 4 with the Kelvin timeline stuff might actually be happening.
Oh,
So
okay.
so there is so much going like okay, here's a question that Joe kind of asks a lot.
Okay.
Do you think sci-fi is better suited to television and episodic storytelling than it is to these big blockbuster movies?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Um, huh. I mean, initially, my gut. Oh, Donnie can't remember it either. We'll get it. We'll get it. It'll be one of those things. As soon as we log off,
Or like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna come pounding on my door. I remember what it is.
yeah, Donnie. Josh actually hit that at the beginning too. Thanks for hitting that again. That Prodigy is going to stream first on Paramount Plus, which is really interesting tactic, but we'll see how that plays out. Um, my gut reaction is it plays better on television just because there's been so many good shows, whether they're the originals or the not rehashes, but
Reboots, remakes,
reboots,
yeah.
remakes. Battlestar Galactica was
Which
great,
is coming back.
which is coming back again. Battlestar Galactica. You've got the Star Trek universe. There's so many. You can
The Expanse
4400,
on
The
Amazon.
Expanse on Amazon Prime. There's so many good sci-fi shows that Black Mirror. That can really take the benefit of having a longer, stretched out storyline, whether it's over the course of 14 episodes or 26 episodes. But then I sit there and I think about the heyday of sci-fi, and to me, the heyday of sci-fi, maybe it's because I'm a little older too, but the heyday of sci-fi to me is Aliens, Terminator,
Mm-hmm.
the Star Trek
80s
and
and
Star Wars
90s.
movies,
Yeah.
80s and 90s. That's when the heyday of sci-fi to me
I
really
think
was.
well, I think there was a shift sometime in like the late '90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, from like real like I don't want to say hard sci-fi,
Hmm.
but it was a shift over to more blockbuster style sci-fi movies. Like sci-fi movies had to be these big action adventure things with huge set pieces. Um, Whereas
Yeah,
on TV, they were able to be like these smaller, more socially conscious like storytelling things. Like the best sci-fi
yeah,
books, are not big blockbuster type things.
hmm,
They're character stories, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where
I think
I,
TV.
a
Yeah.
movie Children of Men is one of those movies. We haven't had a movie like
Mhm.
Children of Men in a while.
No.
5 or 6 years ago, there's one I tell everyone to watch this movie. It's called Space Station 76.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Matt Bomer, Liv Tyler, Patrick Wilson, Jerry O'Connell. There's a ton
Oh,
of
wow.
like people in it. But it's the idea behind it is it's a look at the future
Hmm.
from the 70s. So like the CGI and everything in it is good.
Like
But
an alternate timeline
but
for us.
yeah. Like imagine if someone made like if the thinking of today was like it
Hmm.
was in like the mid 70s,
Okay.
and that's what Space Station 76 is. It's like
Okay.
I think it was a play before it was a movie too. So that's a
Ooh.
little bit different thing. But
Oh,
it's a
I
good
might have to take a look at that.
it's a character driven story. It's not story to get to the next piece of action.
Hmm.
It's action to get to the next piece of story.
And I have to watch this now because I love that you say that. That as a stunt guy, that is always whenever I'm working as either as an actor or choreographer, and whenever I'm working with other choreographers and stunt performers, that's one of the things that's paramount is that the action has to elevate the story. It can't be its own story. It can't pull away from the story.
Right. Like obviously you've got movies where that works. Because that's what the story is. Like like I love the
But
John Wick stuff, but in John Wick the action is driving the story, not the story driving the action.
starting the action, but it's still telling the story. It's not pulling
Right.
away from the story. It's not detracting. It is the story, and thus it still serves the story.
Right. Or like Corey, one of the guys who's on the Power Rangers show with me.
Hmm.
Like his thing with Power Rangers, he just likes the fights. Like the story is completely secondary to watching these giant monsters fighting these giant robots.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
and that's what Power Rangers is for a lot of people. The story is kind of whatever,
Meh.
but it's just the fights that go along with it. And that's one of the reasons that I like Ultraman, which we've been covering.
Great
is
show.
is that it's more like the fights are there. Like I just watched the finale this morning. We unfortunately had some scheduling conflicts, and we're rescheduled the discussion on the finale until next week.
Oh
But
darn.
but the finale was a good mix of here's the story, here's the drama, but here's this absolutely epic fight scene with Ultraman just like shoved right into the middle of it.
And what's great about that episode, because I do remember most of that fight, especially, is that it's kind of the fight that you've been waiting for this entire show.
Yeah.
They've got some good fights up to it, but this is like what you've been hoping for, and that's cool that you got actually a week more of anticipation before y'all
Yeah,
get
and
to talk about it.
it's funny. God, because I really want to talk about this episode now, but like because
Yeah.
there were some real like Matrix and anime moments that were really
Yeah.
well placed in there that just really worked. But getting back to this episode, before we wrap out this show, do we have any like random trivia or like cool facts that you found when you were when you were looking up information about it?
Well, I think I said most of them already, but Dominic Keating. Oh, did I mention that Dominic Keating had auditioned for Voyager a couple years prior? Did I talk
Um,
about that already?
we talked about that. I don't remember if that was on camera or off camera now.
Well, I'll just repeat it because I think I've already peppered in the fun facts I found. Oh, Donnie, by the way, Jerry O'Connell, my introduction for Jerry O'Connell, Stand By Me. Yeah, although I did watch Sliders religiously, but Stand By Me.
And My Secret Identity after that.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
And My Secret Identity was a superhero show. He was a kid who lived next door to a nutty professor type guy, who basically, you know, like Doc Brown from Back to the Future,
or Rick.
So, you know, Jerry O'Connell's character would help him out with random things. He ran into his garage or his lab or whatever to ask him about something, just as he was shooting off like a gamma ray burst at like a plant or something for some kind of experiment. Jerry O'Connell got hit with it and developed superpowers.
Oh, okay.
But he's a 14-year-old kid
with superpowers.
Yeah.
What were his superpowers? Like doing homework really fast or something?
So he was super strong. He was invulnerable, or just like
Captain America,
sort of Captain America-ish. But he could also glide. Like he couldn't fly. Like he couldn't.
Like original Superman.
Sort of. So he was able to levitate off the ground, but he couldn't choose the direction that he went. So he had like 2 cans of like aerosol deodorant that he would use to propel himself whichever direction he wanted to go. We've interviewed him a few times now for because he does a lot of voices for like DC stuff. He also does a voice of the first officer in Lower Decks now too.
Oh, cool.
Which is interesting because he's the first officer in Lower Decks. His wife is the first officer in Strange New Worlds.
Wow.
Right?
Keeping it in the family. All right. That's cool.
But every time I talk to him, I either have to ask him about Sliders, and whether or not we're going to get a reboot, which apparently he's has a passing interest in actually rebooting Sliders now. So that's fun. But I always ask him because sequel series and reboots and relaunches are a big thing now. Will we ever see a sequel series to My Secret Identity? And his answer is always something along the lines of, who knows? We'll see. Who knows? Maybe.
Regardless, I want to make sure that Donnie does the theme song for it because he is all about the theme tunes here.
Yeah. Donnie, like you should check. Donnie, post one of your links in the chat here so Jamie can see it. He has a SoundCloud where he posts like a lot of his remakes of like classic.
Heck yes. I can't wait to hear that. So what I found, in case I already said it.
So you're saying Dominic Keating had auditioned
for Voyager, actually, a couple years prior to getting cast as Lieutenant Malcolm Reed, and My Secret Identity reboot, Donnie. But he had auditioned for an episode of Voyager. He didn't say which one. But when he and Tucker, when they were filming the episode, Rick Berman, one of the creators, had come up to him and said, "Your headshot has been sitting on my desk for over 2 years now." And that, I mean, like every actor is just like, that never happens. But it's every actor's dream. And Dominic Keating's reply to it was, well, you could have at least called me. It's like, you know, so I can only imagine you auditioned for Voyager, which is, by the time he auditioned for it, it's close, probably 5th or 6th season. And he's just like, oh man, I didn't get it. They didn't need me. They didn't want a British guy or whatever. And then all of a sudden he gets a call 2 years later saying, hey, so we got this audition for, you know, and you had mentioned something earlier about Billy Campbell, and just in general, bringing people back. That's something that I actually have loved about the Star Trek universe, particularly those 4 series that were back to back to back to back. Yeah. But even what they're doing with these new ones, with the ones that are current, is that those people that are within the universe, they get brought along, and some people, I mean, like our
favorite character, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs, our favorite character.
I haven't seen him show up in Discovery yet, but what's his name? Ron Howard's brother.
Oh, Clint Howard.
Clint Howard was in the season finale of the first season of Discovery.
Heck yes. And Clint Howard's played a few. He played a
Yeah.
Ferengi. I
He,
think
he
he played.
he was a little kid in like some weird like alien kid in one of
Mhm.
the original series episodes.
Oh, was he really in
Yeah.
the original?
Yeah,
Wow, cool.
he was I can't remember the name of the episode, I can't remember the name of his character, but he was like this little green creature that I think he was like one of these like all powerful creatures that was able to control things.
Oh, okay. That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah.
I'll have to
So
go back and see
that
that
was
episode.
fun. But going back to your Dominic Keating having auditioned
Yeah.
for Star Trek previously, same thing with Billy Campbell. So Billy Campbell had actually auditioned for Riker for Next Generation,
Right.
and he didn't get the role. I don't remember exactly why it was. Again, if you check out our article on him returning to Star Trek Prodigy, he talks about that experience in the podcast that's linked there. But he says that he had called the casting director to apologize because they were like he had felt that maybe they thought that he had maybe purposely bombed the
The
audition.
audition. Yeah, yeah.
So he called her to apologize, like somewhere between season 2 and season 3 filming, and was like, do you think I could be on the show?" And she was like, "Yeah, we could find something for you."
Oh man. I love that story. It also makes me want to call every casting director I've ever been in front of.
You know, it's one of those things. I have trouble doing that kind of thing too. Luckily for me, my day job now is fairly consistent. But when
Mhm.
I was more gig working,
Yeah.
and between jobs, I was always like, all right, I'm gonna send a message to this line producer and see if they're working on anything now that I can come work on. But
Right.
it was always a fight for me to do that because I always felt if they wanted me, they would call
They
me.
would they would call, or your work would speak for
Right,
itself
but
exactly. But
sometimes they work with so many people, and
mhm.
this is the thing that I still kind of have to put into my head with reaching back out to people that I've worked with before that I want to work with again, is that you have to stay in contact with them
Yeah, you
because
have to keep yourself in the forefront of their mind.
because they all work with so many people. They go from
Mhm.
show to show to show. Even like actors, especially, you know, like unless you're on set with them every single day, you know, when they move on to something else in a couple of years that there is a spot for you for, they're not necessarily going to immediately go, "Oh, Josh would be a good person for this."
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. I mean, you always hope that's the case,
yeah,
but I mean, you can't fault somebody for that because the human memory is the human memory.
yeah,
It only
and
works
I
so
mean
well.
that same that I am that guy too. Like I am like you can ask any of my friends. I am so shitty at keeping in touch with people.
I try to be the one that keeps in touch with everybody, and then I feel bad when it's like, oh no, there's that one friend that I missed calling, and then I beat myself up. But Jeffrey Combs has just been cast. Donnie Pearson has cast him.
Oh, as Dr. Phil Boyce in Strange New Worlds. That's interesting. So that's another thing on the Illuminary.com. We have breakdowns for a lot of the new characters that are coming to Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We don't know if Boyce is going to be one of them. He was the original Doctor in the Cage before it
Hmm.
became the Menagerie. There is a Doctor listed there. We don't know if it's a code name so that people don't know who it is, but generally
Right.
known properties like that, like Star Trek, I don't generally see code names for the characters in that. We do
Right.
for the Marvel stuff and for the DC stuff because they want that all kept under wraps. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that for Star Trek.
Well, it makes sense.
But we'll see.
DC and Marvel, there's a lot of source
Hmm.
material, so you want to kind of throw a red herring to bring it back to terms that we remember.
Yeah, yeah.
But with Star Trek, there's not too much source material. You know, it's
Right,
all
and obviously it has a big fan base, but
and a big history. But
you know, like announcing, oh hey, they're recasting Riker. It's not going to break the internet like announcing Mephisto, who's playing Mephisto in WandaVision would.
right, exactly, exactly. Donnie though brings up a thought in my head that, and I know we got to leave. So if this is the last thing, fine, yay. But Jeffrey Combs, if he were cast as a normal, just one of the regular cast, not a recurring, not a guest, if he was on the ensemble,
Oh, that'd be
like
so good.
Would it be good or would we lose? Because I mean, he
Oh, that's
comes
a good
back as so
question.
many different characters
Yeah,
in every season that he's in. He plays at least two, if not more.
that's a good point.
And I mean,
Although
I
I guess if he was playing a character like a non-prosthetic character, like if he was playing a human or
yeah,
an alienoid human that just looked like a human with like maybe ears or
with a
spots or
couple little,
something,
yeah, like a Vulcan or
yeah,
something.
he could still come back as a prosthetic based character, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could because well, no, Neelix was heavy prosthetic, and then he came back as a Ferengi in the beginning of
Yeah,
Enterprise.
Armin Shimmerman played two different Ferengi. He was the
Armin Shimon,
he was
yes,
one of the first Ferengi that the Enterprise came in contact with on Next Generation,
yes,
and then he came back as Quark. Um,
yep.
Tuvok,
Which Devro Armin.
Tuvok is a
Oh, he'd been
guy.
in a lot of
Tim
episodes.
Russ. He was so funny story about Tim Russ too. I didn't know this for the longest time. In Spaceballs, uh,
Yeah. Oh, he's the guy
he's the
combing the
guy with the
desert.
pick who's like,
Yeah.
"Sir, we ain't found
Oh
shit."
shit. Yes,
Like
I
that's him.
love that.
As soon as I found that out, I was like, "Oh, that's dope." But
That's the yeah.
he originally auditioned for Geordi in Next Generation, but they thought he was too young. But he did
Mhm.
come back in a later Next Generation episode as a thief
Thief.
when the Enterprise was being like cleansed or something with that baryon pulse or something.
Yeah.
And he was in one other episode somewhere, and then he came
He
in.
actually played another Vulcan.
Oh, that's
He
right.
played a
In Deep
completely
Space
other
Nine,
Vulcan.
right? Or was that in?
I think it might have been in DS9.
Yeah,
Um,
and then
but,
came back as Tuvok. We
Tuvok.
don't talk about
Well, there
Tuvix.
was the episode Tuvix.
Yeah, we don't talk about Tuvix.
Oh, we don't talk about
We don't
Tuvix.
talk about Tuvix.
Hey, I got to give it to the actor that played Tuvix, though.
He
I thought
was
he did a good job.
he did a good job. I just that's one of those episodes where people are like,
Yeah, why?
okay. So before we wrap out, do you have any final thoughts on this episode? I don't have a rating system in place for this show yet, but if you were to rate this episode, what would you give it?
I would have to give it an 8 out of 10. I was looking at actually the ratings on IMDb, and it's all over the place. It doesn't set in any one spot. There's people who put it like at a 2 because they're like, oh God, I can't stand it. It's just two people talking to each other.
Right.
And then there's people who are like, I love that there's one of these character episodes. I have to go with I love that there's a character episode, and what makes it even stronger for me is what we talked about earlier, how everything that occurs it sticks with them and helps further their character development. It's not retconned or some sort of timey wimey wibbly wobbly stuff.
Right. Yeah. I would. I'm in about the same place. I thought it was a really solid episode. It doesn't like directly further the storyline of the show,
Yeah.
but it's just a solid all around episode. We really get to know Trip and who Trip is, like underneath everything else that we see. We really get to know Dominic Keating's character, Malcolm Reed. And
I guess there is one piece of trivia that I can add to this.
okay.
So something that was cut, and it was supposed to be brought back in another episode that it got cut from, and then gets brought up as a bit of a story in season 4. And you can catch it on the DVD box set, which is the one good thing that DVDs still have over streaming, I suppose. But there's a story that Trip is supposed to be telling to Reed, in which it's a story about Archer and how Archer is implacable and he has no fear and he's just like such a good commander. So Archer goes down to Florida once a month and goes diving with Trip. And Archer didn't know anything about diving. Trip knew all of it. Archer picks it up really fast, like he does everything. So Trip tries to fool him, and he says, hey, stick your hand in that hole. There's a bunch of starfish in there. He sticks his hand in a hole, and it's this giant eel that apparently everybody in this area knows about. He pulls his arm out. The eel's like attached to his arm, and without being phased or anything, he just like pokes it under the jaw, and the eel dislodges and goes off on his way. And instead of being mad at Trip about it, he actually finds it funnier than Trip did, and he treats Trip to surf and turf afterwards.
Nice.
So it's this nice little part of character development that even was left out, but still holds true to the whole how
Right.
it
I mean that would have been a fun story, but I also feel like at this point we've heard a lot of stories between Archer and Trip. Like we know that they knew each other before they both were serving on the ship together, and that they have like, oh well, you saved my life this time, you saved my life this time, like
this
you
time.
know.
Yeah,
They all
they
have
got
that. So I can understand why that was cut.
Yeah. Oh, it makes sense why it was cut, and especially for time. But it's still a great story.
Yeah.
They have a black and white version of it on the DVDs.
Oh, nice. Before we go, this coming up week, just to plug a couple of things that we have coming up tomorrow night on the Illuminerdi. You can catch the Illuminati Wrestling Order at 8:00. And they'll be talking about everything that happened this past week in the world of professional wrestling, whether it's AEW, WWE, New Japan World Wrestling. I think they talk about TNA. Is TNA still a thing? I don't know if TNA is still a thing. I haven't watched wrestling in forever.
I have little plastic figurines of WCW wrestlers, and that's about all that I remember.
I have a Mr. T action figure somewhere.
Yeah, nice.
But like he wrestled briefly, didn't he?
I think he might have
made like
done
a guest appearance.
Guest spots.
Yeah,
it kind of like how he did in the Rocky movie.
Yeah.
It was
I have a Sergeant Slaughter action figure too.
Oh, cool. Now,
I can't remember his GI Joe figure though, not his wrestling figure.
Not his wrestling. Now, who predated which? Was the wrestler first, and they added him to the show, or was he a GI Joe and the wrestler took the name?
He was a wrestler first.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he was a wrestler, and then they brought him in.
Okay.
So so we've got Illuminati Wrestling Order tomorrow night. We're trying to build some more stuff to come out throughout the week. You've got It's All Connected, our DC and Marvel discussion that will drop on Tuesday. On Thursday nights now, we're doing a Marvel TV watch-along. We're not showing the episode here on YouTube because we don't want to get canceled by Disney. But you'll be able to see our reactions, chat with us about it here in the chat, talk to us about it while it's airing. And then after the show, we'll break it down and have a discussion about what we just saw, what our theories are. Next week is the finale of WandaVision, so that'll be a good episode to catch us up with. I'm not sure what we're doing in the week between WandaVision ending and Falcon and Winter Soldier starting. We'll either come up with something.
Maybe do a recap of all of WandaVision.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a recap of WandaVision, what we expect to see in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So that'll be it'll be fun. And then next weekend back with Retro Ranger wrap up, which is talking about the finale of Ultraman from 2019, the Netflix series. Hopefully we'll get season 2 soon. We'll have the regular Ranger wrap up, and Star Trek, the Riker maneuver, talking about episode 16 of Enterprise. Do we know what that episode's called? I should have looked at that before.
I did, and then my brain started.
Scrolling up. Next episode is not listed here.
Oh no, I can find it. Can't I?
Maybe. We'll see who gets to it first.
Okay, it's loading. Oh, there. Fusion.
Fusion. Okay.
Fusion. Which is not Tuvix.
It's good. What Dragon Ball Z? Is it Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, it's Dragon Ball Z meets Star Trek. Yes,
that would be.
I think it's where Gohan he does the fusion dance with T'Pol.
As long as it's not Tuvok, we're good. that would be like Govix.
Govix.
Tuhan.
Tuhan sounds good. Actually, I don't know.
Or if it was Vegeta, would it be like Tujita?
I don't know. I try not to say anything about Vegeta. I don't know. That word is too close to anything that might sound bad.
Yes, that is very true.
Donnie's put a lot of his SoundCloud stuff in the.
Oh, great!
I can't wait to look at it, and I hope everybody else gets a chance to as well.
With all the plugs that are there, I know this is actually your first time doing live stuff with us.
Yeah.
So I'm
actually my first time doing live stuff. Period.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here. How was this experience?
It's been great. Talking to you is super simple. But like I thought we were supposed to only do like 45. I think we've gone an hour 15 or hour and a half.
We're coming up on an hour and a half. I mean, typically we're an hour show, but sometimes it goes longer, sometimes it goes shorter. It just depends on how much we have to talk about.
I've had a blast.
Luckily for this show, we don't have anything that follows us. So while we want to keep it at a specific time, if we run over a little bit, we run over. Okay, so things that we're talking about with you, I know you're going to start doing some anime stuff for us. We've been talking about Cowboy Bebop.
Yep, I'm gonna start bringing in some content regarding the upcoming Cowboy Bebop live action series, and then we're gonna use the anime to kind of segue into it.
That's gonna be fun, and we're still trying to figure out what we're doing with Twitch. Like some gaming stuff. We were talking about this earlier. I think I'm going to start streaming the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, go through the trilogy from the beginning to the end again. Because I replayed both Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 before Mass Effect 3 came out. Yeah. But I haven't played any of them since they released. So,
they hold up well. Mass Effect 2, really. Mass Effect 1, because I played them all through. I thought that was on my side.
That was Bixby. Somehow I launched my voice assistant.
They felt left out. I played through the Mass Effect series about 2 years ago now, and excuse me, Mass Effect 1, the terrain stuff is just
scanning and looking for the minerals. I mean that sucks in all of them.
Like, that sucks in all of them.
It's just,
but they refine it better as you go.
Yeah. Like it's easier to go there and just like hit the triggers to scan the planet, and then you're like, okay, now I'm done. I'm gonna move on. It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or like every once in a while running into the thing where you drop down to the planet to go fight a bunch of people and then take whatever it is that they have.
Yes.
Like random encounters are always fun. But the Legendary Edition looks really good. Like the new remastered graphics look.
Okay, I was about to ask, is it remastered or
yeah?
Is it kind of like along the lines of like how Dark Souls was remastered for the PS5?
Yes, or like Spider-Man being remastered for the PS5. Like it's been remastered for both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and PC. So it looks like, and Mass Effect is one of those games where like upgrading the effects will add not necessarily anything to the gameplay, but just visually. I can tell that it can be an absolutely beautiful game. Stubbs the Zombie, we had talked about this earlier. That's being re-released, remastered. I think in a couple of weeks. I might go with that because that's just a fun game. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to figure out what we're doing with
Did I hear, and maybe I'm completely off base by saying this, but did I hear that there might be a Grim Fandango sequel in the works? Is that something I'm making up in my mind?
I don't know. They did remaster it.
That might have been what it was.
So if it's garnering enough attention, maybe we might see that. I would love to see a remaster and new sequels to the Monkey Island series too.
Monkey Island, I love that.
We got the Telltale
Maniac Mansion.
Yeah, all that stuff is just fun. Like point and click adventures. Like they're dumb, but they're fun. Like those are like one of my favorite styles of games.
I'm actually playing through. It's not point and click, but I guess it's kind of the evolution of point and click. Little Nightmares right now.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, it's so short but good.
Yeah, so that's what we have coming up. That's what we're thinking about doing. Again, come back tomorrow night, Sunday nights at 8:00 for the Illuminerdi Wrestling Order. If you're at all into wrestling, I guess except for actual like college wrestling, the professional wrestling is just a little bit different.
If you're not going to the Olympics, you're going to the arena.
Yeah. Olympic wrestling and WWE wrestling are not the same.
No, not the same.
I would feel bad for anyone who went into either of them thinking that it was.
Well, that's how I always.
But I also would find that being
started in WWE. Kurt Angle got hired by him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go." Wait a minute. Well,
right, because he was a wrestler, right?
He was I think he medaled in the Olympics.
He did, and there was someone else that did too. One of the really big guys. He's like the size of Batista, but not Batista. I can't remember what his name is.
The only thing it comes to my mind simply because he was a family friend when I was a kid. Sid Vicious but that's not.
No. It's someone who still relatively still does stuff. He's got like a giant sword tattoo like on his chest, I think.
I don't know anybody past 99.
I can't remember his name. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, that will do it for us for today. Make sure to check our schedule. when we post it. We post when things are coming up on our social media. So make sure to check with us there. Check us out on the internet at the Illuminerdi.com for breaking news in sci-fi, Marvel, DC, really anything that you can think of. We have it all there, and we will see you guys next week. And I need to find this button. I'm horrible at these endings. I'm just going to keep talking and rambling on until
that works.